Three, we're based in Dublin, Belfast and Cork, and there is a diverse team of us. There's 11 actually on the team, and we are consulting, research and recruitment. I am a senior consultant with the 2 into 3 team, and I lead on all Northern Ireland based and the border counties. I lead the practice there as well as all the grants. In terms of my background, I mentioned before there about LEADER. I was initially involved in LEADER from the mid-90s in putting in applications with my local authority and putting together the local action group and setting up the local action group. I've also worked as a project officer on LEADER projects, both in Northern Ireland and in the Republic of Ireland. I don't see anybody from Kildare LEADER here, but I was there some time ago. Far too many years to care to mention, to be honest with you. I've also been a consultant preparing applications both in the private and public sector, so for not-for-profit, social enterprises, tourism, but also private individuals who want to apply it for their business improvement schemes. As well as that, I was a board member for a number of years along the border counties, giving out money as a board member. So I assessed applications as well. So I've kind of went the whole way around the cycle of LEADER and a whole way around that conference table of being a project officer, of being an applicant, and being the assessor, as well as an evaluator and you know, an advisor as well. So I have a great belief in the LEADER project. I think it shows a massive investment into the rural economy and rural communities, and I really wanted to hopefully I will bring that enthusiasm to here and encourage applications, as well as giving you some ideas from the successes that I've witnessed over the years and been a part of. 2 into 3, we work with only the non-profit sector. We work within arts and culture, education, environment. If any of you are here from sports background, you might have seen me been involved very much in the Sports Capital Programme at the start of this year. So we deliver with all different sections of the non-profit sector. So what we're here for, the LEADER funding programme. It began in '91. It's match funded in Ireland through the Rural Development Programme and the Department of Community and Rural Development. It's a locally led programme. So it's a bottom-up approach. You'll always hear this about LEADER, bottom up, bottom up. And the new transitional programme was launched and came into effect on the 1st of April in 2021. That is basically as a bridging funding between 2020 and the new programme, which will come out in 2023. Well, actually it'll come out 22, but really into operation by 23. So it's a bridging programme for those two, and it's known as the transitional programme. A total of 70 million has been allocated across the country over those 29 LAGs. And your LAG is your local action group, and they are there to administer the funding. I am not here in any shape or form talking on behalf of a LAG. I am here from 2 into 3 as we work with non-profit sector applying for this, and I'm using my experience of being on a LAG and things like that. So I'm not here to speak on behalf of those. I will give you some information about your local LAG, but in terms of there's 29 of them across the country. 70 million has been allocated for the Rural Development Programme, and 65 million of that will go to the LAGs. So there's quite a substantial investment available there for the sector. Now, you may hear at different times this thing called a FLAG. We do like our acronyms, which is the Fisheries Local Action Group, which can be operational along the coastal communities. It has a different system. There's somebody not on mute. Can we just check that, please? Because I can keep hearing the noise. Sorry. So the flags are very different to the local action groups. LEADER is the program, but just to be aware, I'm only going to sort of deal with the LAGs today. Okay. Now, the 7 key principles of LEADER. This is the main foundations of this program. This is why it differs. This is how it This is the ruling principles of everything that it does, how it is set up within the local action groups and how it is administered across the country. So you have the 7 different features. You've got your area-based local development strategy that will be developed by your LAG. You've got networking, cooperation, integrated and multi-sectoral action, innovation. You've got your local public-private partnerships, which are your LAGs, and it's your bottom-up approach, the implementation of the strategies and bottom-up um, programs. So you're not coming in to say from whatever part of the country or should wherever it should be, coming in from Europe or coming in from Dublin or coming in from Cork or Galway or any of the main urban centres saying this is what you need. These are programs which are developed locally, and every local area has its own development strategy, which is then administered by their local action group. Now, these 7 features, the way I'm going to approach it now is I've taken these and I have summarized them within the different advice that I'm going to give you on how to prepare a proposal. The first one that I would really stress upon is innovation. Leader is not about just continuing on to do what you've always done before and seeking funding for that. It is about seeking a new, innovative way of doing work. Now, this could be right down to your community centre if it needs some sort of investment or redevelopment or anything like that. How are we going to do things a little bit differently? How can we bring some innovation into our local community? So always think about what is innovative about my project, what is new, and what is something different to what we've done before. So always think of innovation. And for me, in terms of leader, that is the real selling point. It's about bringing innovative actions. If it was something that we could all be doing, it would be done. Whereas leader wants to fund something different in your community. So these programs, what I have looked at in terms of capacity building, and it's how you can add value to what you're already offering. A focus for the transitional program is the building the capacity with groups who would not have applied for the leader funding before. Now that's why we did the poll, because there's 2/3 of the audience here today who haven't applied before. So this program is really trying to encourage you to apply for it. So it also is looking at what is the impact of the pandemic. We cannot understate the impact that this has had on our society, on our communities, on our economy. And I think it's something which we will obviously have a legacy from this pandemic within all our societies. So it's how can we address that? How can we respond to that, both in a short-term case, but also in the long term? So what I would say, the first thing, the program wants to support job creation, entrepreneurship, as well as looking at climate change and looking at digitalization and to build on your strengths and your assets. But what I would also say is look at what your community needs right now, what your sector needs. So if you are working within a particular sporting group or you're working within a particular just rural community, what do they need right now? What has changed in 2021? What issues can you see emerging lately? And you think, right, this is something we need to tackle. You are the experts in your area. You are the people that have the experience of what people have actually gone through and what they need to get out of this. So it's about looking at those programs of what you can start again, build the capacity, build your own capacity and build the capacity of those that you are your user groups. So if you have not received funding before, which 2/3 have shown that they haven't, this is something you need to start looking at and maybe start be inspired to what to apply for. Now, this when you think of the experiences of the pandemic and how leader can address those, you know, we are looking at what's happening in our local areas. Mental health is a huge issue. It's going to keep emerging, especially with rural youth and especially with our youth. We can look at the returning population. We're showing that people are coming back because we have this remote working. Well, what else is happening in your area to promote remote working? So these are all issues that are happening on a global on a national scale, which will have an impact on your local community. So the leader funding looks at 3 key themes. And these themes are economic development and enterprise development and job creation. So that can take in your rural tourism, that can take in your rural towns, broadband and enterprise. A lot of private sector would apply under this theme because it's about applying for your business development. Now this program, in terms of transitional leader program, isn't always going to be just for creating a job or whatever. It's about looking at this as a whole. Like I said, it's about looking at digital transformation, broadband, what is happening in your area, what in terms of your rural tourism is needed. Staycations is having a huge impact, but how can you react, respond to this? I know it's well out of your own zones maybe, and it's not even a rural project, but I saw on the news recently about how a museum has had to adapt that they cannot actually do guided tours at the moment when they're reopening. So they're doing a more digital interactive shows. So people are going around and seeing screens, and they've had to introduce different sort of holograms and that sort of speakers as they're going along. So these are new innovative ways of how to deliver your tourism product, but within these pandemic and post-pandemic times. In terms of social inclusion, these are your basic services for hard to reach community and for rural youth. My apologies. So it's looking at how are you doing this? Are we doing differently? Do we need to develop new projects in terms of our youth programs? Is it about retraining them? Is it about re-engaging? Is it about dealing with actually the isolation and how all aspects, all parts of our community and all age groups are actually dealing with this. I know there's a huge issue now with young mothers and family groups because of the fact that there wasn't the services, there wasn't the mums clubs and all of that. So there is a lot of needs out there. Now, there will be cross-cutting needs, and in terms of your themes, they may be cross-cutting. And this is particularly true for theme 3, rural environment, your protection, sustainable use of water resources, local biodiversity, and renewable energy. Now, in terms of renewable energy, I found in my experience, and especially across Europe and in Northern Europe, in the Netherlands and countries, and in Germany in particular, they do use renewable energy as part of their enterprise creation and for dealing with community groups and how to give services to community groups. A very simple and basic but very innovative project that I came across one time was a huge community hall which was so expensive to heat and was a drain on the resources for the local community group. Were actually hiring out their cellar to a local computer firm for data storage. So these huge servers used to be in there because they need a cold environment, and they were stored in the basement. So they got the heat from that, they got the rent from that, and the local businesses got to use the facility that was there. So in terms of renewable energy, they were able to use solar panels and all of that as part of their system of keeping the electricity going in the area. There was an investment, and there was a cross-cutting theme of all 3. And it was just a new way to look at it, and it just happened to be somebody local was in that sort of sector. He knew an awful lot about data storage and a lot about IT. So there is always a cross-cutting theme for all projects, and that should be looked at. Local biodiversity is a huge one for rural tourism, and looking at our diversity of our local environment and how we can sell that and how it can be protected and used to show off what we have in our rural towns, especially if you're doing any sort of like environmental improvement schemes or anything like that. So there will always be a cross-cutting measures and projects within the different themes. So that's the leader. How do we go about actually getting a project started? This is where the difficult job starts. You have, as I said before, look at what your community needs. Look at how it's changed. Look at the projects that you've done to date. And what else can we do now? How can we tick these boxes in terms of dealing with our youth, dealing with the local economy, dealing with creating jobs, things like that. And as well as ticking the boxes, come up with ideas and think, well, what work should be done? You shouldn't try to make a project fit leader, because that is trying to put a square peg into a round hole. It will not work. So you need to develop the project and see, does leader fit it? So look at, and it may not fit all aspects of your project, but it will possibly fit some of them. So look at what you want to do and why are you doing it? Is it because you just think, well, we need a new roof, or we need some new equipment, or we need some new facilities in the area? Or is it because you can actually see the need with your communities for those facilities? I have to say, I was always, and this is probably where I might be in the bad books with some of the audience here. People always say, well, we need a parish hall. Well, I'm sorry, but if another community very close by has got a parish hall, why can't you work together? Why do you need one? So you always need to look at, why do you need one? And why do you need this? Or is it a case of, can you work with somebody else? How much is this going to cost? And who is going to lead and develop this project? If you are talking about developing facilities, have you got the actual human resources to manage that? Is there going to be enough volunteers to open up and turn the lights on? Is there going to be enough people to make sure the place is cleaned? Is the machinery or the equipment that you're buying, is it going to be managed and integrated into your business, your social economy business, or into your centre? Is it a rural tourism centre? Who is going to manage all this? When is it going to be done? This is a transition program. So if you are thinking of in terms of developing a project, you should think, is it going to be for the transition program, or is it going to be for the big in 2023, the next round of leader? So you need to decide, when is this going to be done? And being as somebody who used to assess grant applications, the worst possible scenario is you allocate funding to a project who then says, we can't do that. We don't have the capacity to do that right now. Because you have got that money over somebody else, and then you have to restart, and nobody wants to be sitting there with a pot of money at the end of the program. So when will it be done, and is it realistic in that time scale? And where is the development to take place? Is it in your existing premises? Is it something that doesn't require premises? As in, it's a walking tours, it's a tourism project or something like that. Have you got all the necessary approvals in place? But I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. Now, the other thing that I want to stress here, and it comes back to the 7 principles, you want to be innovative in this. Think of something new. Look at other ways other people have done things. Look at other case studies. And in the next webinars, we will look at those things, and we will give you some sort of innovative solutions, just a few sort of broad range projects that we've heard about over the years. And it is bottom up. So it is something from you as a community you want to be able to manage, and you want to be able to implement this. So this is a bottom up project, bottom up funding program. So you need to be able to answer these questions. And don't forget, it can cross over many themes, and it can cross over different ideas. Now, this is where the wheel, in effect, is doing these webinars right now. It's about getting people to be proactive, rather than saying, oh, this leader funding's out, we'll just whack in an application. Let's be proactive and think about it. You will need quite a few documentations and approvals for this program. Never mind leader. I always maintain that everybody who receives public funding, should you be a sports club, a family centre, a community group, a tidy towns committee, doesn't matter, or you are an artists group, a writing school, whatever you are, you should have like a database of all documentation, and that would be your constitution, your annual accounts, passwords. It's amazing the amount of people that don't have passwords to different funding sources and bank accounts and all of that. And all those documentations should be in some sort of database that the executive committee of your organization can access at any one time. And it's not just one person can access that. So I would always be a firm believer in creating that database and have it on the cloud, have it on Dropbox, have it wherever. But you should have to have those, checklist of documentation sitting there. So what documents and approvals will you need? Do you need a feasibility study, like a business plan? Do you need a community analysis, a training needs analysis? What do you need, and have you got that? So if you are saying, right, this project is required in my area, how are you going to prove that? So it's all about showing your need and how you're going to prove it and how you're going to have any feedback that you have. So if it's any feasibility studies. Now, one of the things to be aware of within LEADER, and especially LEADER in this transitional program, is it funds feasibility studies. So if you need a feasibility study done or some sort of studies done into your project, that is eligible for funding up to 90% right now. So you could actually look at the transitional program to get yourself ready for the big program in 2022. So that is something to be aware of. So if you're looking, right, we do need this, but we're not in a position, this is something maybe you could look at later for now. Have you got the lease and title for whatever size? I say club premises because I would have done this with a lot of sports. Have you got the lease or a title for your organization? Is it a lease that's more than 15 years, 20 years, or do you own it? Is there any charges on that title? Do you need planning permission? This is another issue within LEADER. If you require planning permission, it has to be in place by the time you apply for it. If you do not need planning permission, you still need a letter and verification from your local authority to prove that you don't need planning. So these are all things that you need to just logistics, and as we talk about admin, you need to have in place. Do you have a project team in-house? Who's going to manage all this? Who's going to make sure it's run, even in terms of the application? I talk here about external consultants. As a consultant, I walk in with a project plan to do a funding application. You'd need that too, and that's even who's going to make sure the finance is all in place, who's going to make sure the planning's in place. So have you got that all in house? And in terms of external consultants, that could be either a planning consultant, an architect, somebody doing your feasibility studies, somebody doing your grants, whatever it is. So do you need those, or have you got the skills in-house or the technical skills within your organization to get that done? Now, I keep on just saying about being proactive rather than reactive. Get a vision for your organization. How is this going to be achieved, and develop an action plan, and then see does LEADER fit. If LEADER doesn't fit, maybe something else fits. LEADER might fit some of it, but get an action plan and get a development plan together for your organization. We go back again to our 7 principles. So partnership and the need to work in partnership with others. So if we recap on the 7 principles of networking, cooperation, and having public and private partnerships, this is why I'm saying you need to work in partnerships. So you are a community organisation. Should you be an arts body? Should you be a sports body? Should you be a family or a community organisation or tourism or whatever it may be? You do not live in isolation in your area. So you have your wider community, your other users, you have other local sports, you have sponsors who may help you out at different times, you have your supporters, you have also those that actually participate, your participants, those that come along. And these are all the partners that you need to include in what you're doing. And why we say about working, how do you communicate with your partners? How do you let them know, right, well, we're thinking of applying for LEADER, we're thinking of starting a new project, we want some new innovative ideas to deal with high COVID. I'm going to just take, for example, purely because I sit on one myself, a local writing school. So we're looking at, we can't run the writing school this year. And we're going to look at, right, how are we going to deal with this? So we have talked to our different writers, our participants, those that would have come along before, some of our sponsors who've said, well, why don't we do it online? Everybody else is doing it online. So we're thinking of now doing an event online. So you need to communicate with those that you work with, your partners. And that's what I'm saying about networking, cooperation. The fact you're all here today at a whale webinar, that is networking and cooperation. You're finding out what's happening with others. But do you involve those others in your decision making, or do you tell them what you're going to do? So everybody like gets some sort of support from a local business community in some shape or form. Should it be a technical support or money or whatever it is? And it may be very small, and some groups it may be very big. But do you actually ask them what they would like, or do you just go and ask them for their support, financial support? So do you work with other organizations? Do you work with a sports club? Do you work with, if you are running a youth project, do you work with your heritage group? So do you all work together in some shape or form? And are these informally or formal? I'm very aware, I was working in this sector for so many years, it tends to be, well, that's my brother-in-law, so I know him, I'll give him a call. Or, oh, I went to school with her, so I can give them a call. So they are very informal relationships. However, there are also other relationships that you form through local networks, through your local PPNs. I think we have some PPNs on here today, but I think they are an amazing sort of established network for any county, so you know what's happening in your area, and they are a great source of information and support. So sports partnerships, we've done an awful lot of work with sports partnerships. So these are the sort of things you need to work with. And have you created any partnerships of your own, or are they informal just because we know them? Now, one of the things we'd always say at the end of this is you would like to know what your relationship with your stakeholders and your partners are. So is it financial? Is it technical support? Some of them can be just great lobbyists for you. You know, they're really, really good at getting people on board. You can also be in terms of sports. If you ever run an event, the sports clubs are great for stewarding and great for giving you some equipment that you might need, barriers, things like that. That's fine. It's just, what are these partnerships? So do you have a license or a memorandum of understanding with these? And what is your engagement and communication plan with these stakeholders and partners? Have a plan how you're going to talk to them, especially if you're talking about doing a new project in 2023, and also to make sure that it's innovative, working together and maybe setting up a new linkages and a program that crosses over many, many different users is what's innovative about what your approach. So financial planning, we can't forget about it. Unfortunately, this is a funding program. You do have to have match funding. There are some rules and regulations about what you can use as match funding, especially if it's with regards EU funding. You can't use another EU fund to match. So you need to be very careful in terms of your project, what you are asking for. What are the other supports? Is it your own funds? Is it through organizations like Concreto? Is it through fundraising? What is your financial plan? Do you actually have a financial planning process in place in your organization? Do you have a fundraising strategy? Do you have that match funding in place? Do you know how much everything's going to cost? And it's not, oh, just get this project done. It's about what it's going to cost in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Because if this is innovative, you want it to stay in your area. You're not alone. Apologies. So you're not alone. There are lots of support services out there. Your local action groups, there are 29. Now, one of the things I found online with this here, and it was actually great, the National Rural Network, as an umbrella organisation, they have put together with NUI Galway this interactive map. So you just literally click on the map of where you are and it'll give you all the details of your local action group. So that is the link for this. And I know this presentation is going out to you all after this, so you'll be able to find that link. But that link it was really, really good when I found it. And then, you know, In terms of your local action groups, they're all there and they're all willing to talk to you. As I said, I don't speak for a local action group, but they're there. This is their funding and they're there to get it out to the local communities. The wheel, how can we not mention? They're running this webinar and there's 2 further webinars after today, but there is a mine of information there in terms of all EU funding. And Maria is on the call here today, and Maria will be able to take any sort of follow-up questions as a result of today. In terms of the European Union, this leader toolkit is a very useful resource and a very useful website. It will give you an awful lot of case studies about what's happened all across Europe, and it signposts you to different best practice, benchmarking, all of that. Now, I will be addressing a lot more of that on an Irish scale and an European scale in the next webinar, but it's just if you wanted to have a look. And it also gives you a lot of about the 7 principles and how those 7 principles can be integrated into your project and how they need to be integrated in your project, and how European funding is administered through the LEADER programme. I mentioned them before. The local PPNs are a great source of information, and they're there for every county within the council structure, and they are there to help. And my experience of them has been fantastic, especially with them and the sports partnerships working together and letting you know what's available, what funding is available, and helping you network within your own areas. Unfortunately, I don't speak on behalf of any of those. I know there are some in the audience, so at the end of it, if they want to let the audience know what they do on a more focused level, that's no problem. I'm going to take a wee breath and look at the questions. Okay. Emily, if it's okay with you, I'm just going to go from the top. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, so the first one, Megan, is does LEADER fund feasibility studies? Yes, I addressed that. So it does fund, at the moment, it's up to 90% of funding for a social enterprise, which means a non-profit. So yes, it does fund feasibility studies at the moment. There's another one there for, again, feasibility study about the creation of jobs. Dungarvan, there's a pool available. It's good for things, so that would be yes. The PPNs of a management committee undertake a structural review the next few months. Greater inclusion divides strategy, so that's great. Us letting you know about what's happening within the PPN structure by Donal. Okay, there's one there about the general approach from LEADER for funding sports clubs. I've actually had this recently with a project that I'm working on with a sports club. The club, it can't be in any way, it can't be specifically used only by your sports club. Okay, and that's the problem with the issue with LEADER. You have to be able to show that you are open to all and all users. So when you are actually, I've lost the chat function here, when you're applying as a sports club, you need to show that you are working with the wider community. So you need to look at who are your partners and who are you working with. So if you are looking for just your sports club, and I'm going to take an example of a cycling club who wants to buy equipment so that they can promote cycling in their area. That's not really going to work very well because it's been very targeted to one. If you are a GAA club or a rugby club or a soccer club who has their own premises and you want to update your playing field, and it's probably far too the cost is probably far higher than what you would be able to get in the sports capital program, you need to look at who you're going to be working with in your local community. So is it involving your schools? Is it going to involve the local community groups? Is it going, who is it accessible, and are you going to charge for that as letting them be accessible? There are a number of very specific rules. If you want to drop me an email, anybody who wants to know about school, about sports, I can give you the exact phrasing of the rules for sports clubs and what they want addressed, and that's from the department in Dublin, and they've actually put it in specific what they need. So anybody who needs that about sports clubs, drop me an email. I'll show me email again. So I'm jumping up and down here with these questions. Sorry. Can national organizations make a central application? People wrote this. No, it's because this is a very bottom up. It doesn't come from national organizations, so you'd need to have a local organization who's going to make a specific project. So if you are, as a national organization, going to make an application, you'd need to have projects, partners and projects at a local level, and they are named and involved in that. So you need to have you need to look at who you're actually looking for in at a local level for the applications. Okay, I'm going to just scoot down here again. Emily, can you keep an eye? I'm just not losing any.
Yep.
Feasibility study, lease. Well, match funding with Clan Credo, you'd need to speak to Clan Credo directly with that, because I don't speak on behalf of Clan Credo, so you would need to get in touch with them and just say you're applying for LEADER funding. This is the project that you're doing, and then they would judge you on that behalf. Community allotment projects. That sounds to me, I've know of other community allotment projects that have applied in terms of setting them up in their local rural areas. It's went down really, really well. There's a lot of funding and supports for just as a whole on the agri-food sector. So and you would be entitled to that, not just LEADER. So there's quite a few that is there. Your lease standard tends to be 15 years, but you'd need to have that double checked within your local lag. Okay. Is there anybody who wants to ask me a question directly?
Are you going through the questions, Patricia, on the chat?
I am. Have I missed one? Do you want to tell me your question?
Either you missed them or I did.
Sorry.
I'm not sure. Well, one was the rural versus the urban.
Yes.
If you like.
Was that the one with regards to national organization?
Well, that's one, yeah.
Yes, it has to be rural. This is a rural development fund, so it's not in anywhere that there is a large population build-up, and there is very strict guidelines on population for areas that the funding can go into.
Okay, totally rural focus.
Yes.
Okay. And can the national application be made by an organisation? I'm with the Irish Wheelchair Association, and we're in every county in Ireland.
The thing is, you don't apply on a national level. You apply at a regional level, at a local level. So you apply to a local action group. So take, for example, you couldn't be applying to Carlow Local Action Group for a project that would be in Monaghan. You know what I mean?
There's no mechanism if you have the same program you wanted to run nationally.
Well, that would be then 29 applications that you're putting. These are bottom up. This is a local project.
Yeah, okay.
So you would have, there's no reason why you couldn't have 29 applications ready, but you would have to have them addressed to the area that you're in.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
If I need to leave at 11:30. I'm aware of the LEADER program. I live in County Mayo, but I have made numerous attempts, now it could be COVID related, to contact the local LEADER office.
Can I ask which one it is?
Newport, County Mayo.
as part. It could be just a case of they're not working in the office. Are you emailing? Yeah.
And I've sent.
Sorry, I'm losing you. Is that me, Emily, or?
No, I think
Since probably
connection's going in and out. I might just say in the chat for her to contact you directly via email, if that's okay. And then fine. I see that Kim from The Big Idea has her hand raised.
Yeah.
Kim, you want to unmute yourself?
Thanks for that, Patricia. I'm not sure if my camera's working. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, got you.
Yeah,
we have a schools program that connects industry and students with their communities. So I'm just wondering if we would be eligible to apply on a local level. We're based in Carlow.
Well, if you're doing a project in Carlow, then you can apply in Carlow. It wouldn't be you need to just be careful about what schools you are applying for. If you're based in Carlow, what's really good, and I'll go into more detail the next time, you don't have to put in a full application. The local action groups are really good at saying, put in an expression of interest, and we can go through the specifics, and it's not that detailed in application, so they'll be able to say yes or no, so it's worth your while going ahead or not. So definitely you can contact them and put in an expression of interest.
Perfect, thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, I keep losing you. Your connection keeps coming in and out. Do you want to drop me an email directly and I can see what I can find out for you?
I'd really appreciate that. Who do I email?
You can email me. You'll get it. My email address will be at the end of the PowerPoint.
Okay, because apologies for all, I need to leave at 11:30.
That's no problem at all. So you can drop me an email, sure.
Thanks, Patricia. Thank you.
Not a problem. Nora, you have your hand up.
Yeah. I was just looking there. You said there's 90% for feasibility studies, but if you were applying for the grant, what actually is the ratio? Is it 75%?
75%.
75. Yes. And is there a maximum on what you can apply for?
Everyone's different. Each local action group, it depends on the amount of money that they have available. So some local action groups are given up to a maximum of 30. I've heard of other ones that are given up a maximum of 120. So it really is down to the level of funding that your local action group received under the allocation for the transitional, and then what they'll also receive for the full programme.
And do you think it would be a good idea to have a meeting first with your action group, or submit your application first?
Oh yeah, you put in an expression of interest, and they will be able to say, they say is a goer or it's not a goer, and they can have a chat with you as well. They're very, any experience I've had so far, they're very good.
Okay.
Can I just jump in there, Patricia?
Yeah.
Nora, can I just suggest that if you're looking at a feasibility study, there should be enough funding there for that. And then the actions that come out of your feasibility study, you can apply to the next program where there'll potentially be a bigger pot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So develop your feasibility study and your plan, take the time, and then in the next round of funding, you might have greater access.
Now, the only thing is that I suppose our project would be, we had an internet cafe, and we still run the internet cafe now, not as popular as it was because everyone had internet at home. We started off 11 years ago, and it was just those queues and queues and queues coming in the door waiting for their hour. But what we're finding now is that, especially we're a family resource centre, and we're finding now that we can't get the programs out to people because where we live is a disadvantaged area. Number one, they haven't got broadband. Number two, they haven't got any type of tablet or anything like that. So what we wanted to do was kind of bring, cubicles so that people would come, that there would be still COVID free, but there would be cubicles, and then we'd give office space as well, so that's what we were looking at. So I'm not really sure, do we need a feasibility study on that?
You would need to show who's going to use this. You'd need to have facts and figures and costings and things like that. So it would be useful for you to have a feasibility study, to be honest, because if you're running that. In terms of, Maggie, you're asking there, will I be given tips on writing the application? Yes, I will be doing that at the next stages of the webinar. So the next webinar is on the 8th of June. There was somebody had their hand up there. Is it Faye?
Sorry, it's gone off for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Go on ahead.
No, I just wanted to ask, because a lot of the projects obviously will be that there's no funding within the public services or within specific departments. I'm looking at one, for example, that's around education systems for children that are autistic. That just my son, for example, has something called PDA, which is a part of the autism spectrum, and it makes going to school extremely difficult. So we're looking at what's called Project Square Peg, which is for children that don't fit into the round holes that are created. Because he's currently avails of home tuition grants with the Department of Education, but he won't always be eligible for that. So are things like that something you can apply for, because the Department of Education doesn't and won't fund homeschooling or alternative schooling? So is that something that LEADER is available for?
But that wouldn't be something, because you'd be, if you're applying as an individual, no. You'd need to be applying as a group of educational. So there's a group there, and it's something in your local area you could possibly be speaking to your local action group about. Yeah.
Okay, grand. Thank you.
Moville had theirs hand up, and then.
Yeah, hi Patricia.
Hi.
So just a couple of quick questions. First of all, in general, what's the time frame during this interim period for the application to process? And is there capital specific to the interim period as well available for projects?
Yes, and strangely, I was speaking to your Inishowen lag not that long ago, and they're saying in terms of getting the applications in and turning it around, they're looking at maybe a 2 to 3 month time scale. So they're actually, quite quick on it. And yes, there is a capital element there. So there is.
That's great. There is there. Capital element, yeah.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's people with hands up.
First, we've got Antoinette with her hand up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just wondering, I'm sorry, my camera is not working. I'm not being rude. I was just wondering that if you apply for the LEADER funding, can you apply for the Sports and Capital grant also?
Have you already applied for it?
No, not yet.
You haven't applied for it. If you're going to go for LEADER, I would go for LEADER now, because Sports Capital realistically is not going to be coming out to next year again.
Okay.
So it probably wouldn't be used as a match, because you could be talking about because they haven't even announced the 2021. So if you're talking at the end of this year, it could be the end of next year. So unless your project's 5 years, I would be going on ahead.
I'm sorry, if you do get approval for a LEADER fund, what is the drawdown? I mean, is there a time frame for you to take the money down, or because I know
well,
the Sports and Capital grant.
They will give you on your letter of offer. They will give you, and it's usually 18 months.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Very informative. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Who else is there?
Caroline Bryant.
Sorry now, just bear with me. I'm just ringing there with regard to a community centre. Now, we're in 2 areas. We wanted to hopefully develop our car park and get it tarmacked and that, because we're in a very good area and we have good car parking. And we also have an upstairs in our community centre that has become vacant. And we want to see how best to utilise that. So that's where I'm looking at the feasibility study. You know what I mean? How would you go about doing the feasibility study? Is there professionals that you would approach, and how would you approach that? Now,
yes,
I'm confusing you now, maybe.
No, you're okay. If you're going for the car park, that's a completely separate project, to be honest with you. So you would need to be just doing that separately as a capital project. In terms of feasibility studies, you would be saying, right, well, we have this vacant space. We are a community organisation. This is what we offer. We are seeking, people to come forward with a proposal on how to build a study for us to develop our social enterprise. And yes, there are companies out there, including ourselves.
Oh, brilliant.
Have to get that in there. I had to let it go. My boss would kill me if I didn't say that, so he would. Yeah,
well, I've heard you speaking on sports partnership, and you make everything very clear and very simple. So
thank you, thank you. I do, and just sometimes I think I'm preaching to the converted, but I just find it's easier just to break things down to the building blocks of putting in an application.
So thanks very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Donal O'Shea, yeah.
unmute. Yes.
Yeah.
Hello. Good morning. Thanks, Patricia. Yeah, so just a couple of things that might be of general interest. One is in relation to the Clown Credo. We have used them here in the community in Stradbally. We found them very, very good. I'm sure it varies for each, depending on the nature of the application, but it's generally approximately 10% one has to come up with, and obviously they vary and so on throughout the country. So that's how that works, and we found them very, very good. The other one in relation that was running parallel with that was the credit union. I don't know for what reason. Seem to have made a national strategic approach themselves with a view to stepping out of the line around bridging finances, but it's something we raised the Minister of State who has responsibility in our constituency, so he's due to take it up himself, Sean Fleming. So that's kind of where that is on, to see where the strategic on that. And I know I've had exchange with Emily, for example, there on my personal project, and I've had recent contacts exchanges with my legal entity, so I may follow you up on that one, Emily, or I'd see who I got the most recent update from. So that's kind of where that's at. But yeah, thank you very much, Patricia.
Thank you. Just even to, I think there's somebody from Clan Credo here, I'm not too sure, but I know we would have done a lot of work with them in the past with the sports partnerships, and even they would have spoken at a couple of events we had. So yes, they're excellent. Nora?
I'm not sure if I picked you up right. Did you say you do the feasibility studies?
Yes, we can do those work, yeah.
You can do it as well?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So, and your contacts then, now I know that we have some of the contacts. Are you, when you're sending the slides and stuff, are you going to give us all your details?
Yeah, my details are at the end of the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'll put them up here. She'll just put them up here now, just in case. But hate any of you is not to get them. Is there anybody else with their hands up? Emily?
Yeah, we've got Derek Gallagher.
Sorry, Derek.
Yeah, thank you. Patricia, very informative and very, very helpful.
Thank you.
Quick question. Can a joint application be made by two organisations, for example, a school and a sports club that were side by side? Is that a fees possible?
Like that's a very much a possibility within Sports Capital. What is the project you're applying for? Is it for the actual sports ground?
We're thinking about a walking track around the sports, around the pitches, which would be a benefit to the community and the school and the club.
Yeah.
So that's what we're thinking about.
Yeah, well, one of yous need to be the lead. So it could be the sports club is actually the lead. Okay. And yes, if you can show that you've got the school involved in that, and you've got like a local walking group, local community group, that's no problem. So your sports club, and that's where I was trying to put across. If you are a sports club putting in an application, you have to be very, very strong on showing who are the other community partners. They're very, very strict on showing that there is a strong, partnership there.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay.
And I think we have Bartley Conroy as well. Their hand up.
Yeah.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Hi, how are you? No, it's just about the bridging. If we were looking to get money, and you said you get 75%, the other 25% we have to raise, would that affect us in our leader application of how we raise that 25%, or is that totally outside of leader application altogether? Do you look at that?
No, you'd have to say where you're getting your match funding from.
So if we had to bridge a loan across, does it make a difference? What I'm saying is, does the money have to be there prior to your application? If you know,
yeah, you have to show your funding's there. Yeah, it'll have to be in place. Your bridging loan, or yeah, it would have to be in place beforehand. So you have to show, because it's taking a huge gamble to actually allocate you funding if you haven't shown where your match funding is going to come from. So you'd have to prove your bridging loans
prior to the application.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. That's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And that's the same more or less with all grant applications, to be honest.
Trish, we just have a question in the chat from Robert Hurden. He says he's based in West Cork. So who would I contact for an initial discussion?
It will be your local action group. So we'll send you out the link of finding out who your local action group is. I think you're sending them out today, Emily, aren't you?
Yeah, today
or
or
putting it on the
tomorrow.
website or something like that there, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, everybody that's registered will receive an email and it'll have the recording and the PowerPoint, and we can include a list of the local action groups as well, so people know who their first call are.
That's no problem at all.
Patricia, can I just say, Tony from Irish
Yes.
Wheelchair Association, I just threw up 2 links there for people in terms of innovation and community projects. The whole thing of accessibility can be a big plus in application. So we have 2 sets of guidelines. One is for the built environment, that would be community centres and all of that. Excellent. And the other one is for outdoor trails, the outdoor environment. So that might be useful, and feel free to contact Irish Wheelchair Association if we can assist.
Thank you. Because actually for the outdoor trail, it'll be interesting, because I know I've had a few conversations with groups about the outdoor recreation program and the funds that are available there for walking trails and that. And that's become such a huge issue now after COVID. And this is what I'm saying, like, be innovative, you know, try and think something new.
Yeah, I'm just sticking up my phone number there if anyone just feel free to.
Thank you very much. Any more questions or any other issues people want clarified? As I say, we're going to, yeah.
Hi, sorry, I wasn't sure because my screen has changed to a black screen at the moment. I just wanted to ask you in relation to just one of the questions that was there earlier about having the 25% funding in place before the application and showing, you know, where you got this kind of the funding from. In terms of that, we're also we're a non-profit community-based organisation, and literally we're coming back to no funding at the moment, so we're going to have to start all over again. What's the time frame to apply for the LEADER funding? Because it may take us maybe 3-4 months. We'll have to kind of do some fundraising events to get that 25%. I don't think bridging loans wouldn't be an issue for us.
In terms of time scale, the majority of local action groups are doing a rolling program. So you just put in an expression of interest, and each month they will put up they will have an assessment panel. So when they get enough applications, they will do an assessment panel and then either an approval or rejection. Okay, so they're not doing like Sports Capital or the other programs of this is the date, you know, it has to be in by this date. It's a rolling process, and that tends to be with LEADER. It's a rolling process, and it is that at the moment with most of the lags. I'm not going to say all of them, but so you just need to check your local area. But I know any of them I've been dealing with, them about 3 or 4 directly I've been dealing with lately, and they're all a rolling program.
Oh, fantastic. And can I just ask,
and that's fine. 3 or 4 months is absolutely fine.
Oh, brilliant. And just finally, could I put in the expression of interest without having the funding in place?
Oh, yes. Because the expression of interest, because it would take you possibly 2 to 3 months just to get the application together for the amount of information that you require. So I would get, you know, you don't need any other backup information. Your expression of interest is just that if you're expressing an interest in the program and it's starting the conversation. So if any of you are here today and you have any way clear idea in your mind of what you're going to apply for, put in an expression of interest.
Perfect. Thank you, Patricia. Very informative.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Patricia. Sorry, Patricia. My name is Flora. Sorry, I don't have my camera on.
You're okay.
Sorry about that. Yeah. I had a question put up to you there, but I can say that we would work with the hard to reach category of people or groups. And I'm just wondering, do you have to own a building before you could apply for support to help in repairs? I'm sorry, I came a bit late, so I may have missed that.
You're absolutely fine. You would need to have a lease. You don't have to own it, but you would need to have a lease with that property. And that is something that you'll need to speak to your local action group on how in terms of the lease, in terms of level of investment and things like that they might be willing to give you.
Would there be any specific amount of years that the lease had to be for?
Standard tends to be that we use as just a benchmark for all of these different programs is 15 years.
Okay.
Right.
Now, that's not saying everybody is that, but that's just, we always use that as our sort of standard benchmark.
Okay. Right. Thanks.
And that's just as Muriel has just mentioned, it can take months. Leases are crazy how long they take. It's just, I hate to keep mentioning sports capital, but it's not even sports capital. I've seen it with leader projects all along, with private individuals who are applying, as well as social enterprises who are applying. Leases always seems to be the last minute. Leases and match funding. Yes, if 3 raised their hands there. I can't see, here it is.
I think it's Down Syndrome Cork with their hand up.
Hi guys, just on that lease question there, we are actually currently doing a lease at the moment right now, so for 15 years right now. So if we were to go ahead with building and availing of leader funding in 2 years' time, say, that lease then would be, 13 years. So is it it's a bit of a challenge, isn't it, to get a lease for the period of 15 years, but to have the time to actually get the lease done?
Yeah, there's somebody saying 7 years minimum. It tends to be, it can be so difficult with leases because a lot of people have different ones, and also it's saying people won't give you any longer than 15, or they'll give you a 5-year with an options and things like that there, and it does cause an awful lot of issues when you're applying for funding. You need to check. Is there
a minimum of? Did you mention a minimum of 7 years?
Somebody has just put up in their lag and said 7 years.
Yes, I see that. Yeah. Okay, well that's fine. I was just wondering if it was 15 years, we're in trouble because we wouldn't. It's very hard to have 15 years by the time building starts and stuff.
I totally agree. And I was working with recently one, and they were saying, it's a 15-year lease they got for the last sports capital, and I was going, but that's not valid anymore because you've only 13 left. So yes, it's
like chicken and egg, isn't it?
And it's from the moment that you apply. So it's not about when you signed it that you had 15 years. It's the moment you apply for public funding.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thanks for that.
Who else is?
I think it's so difficult because most properties now, they usually go for minimum 15.
Yeah.
So that's 7.
And it's a huge investment for an organization to take on that lease and take on that financial and legal responsibility as well. Is there anybody else with their hands up there? Emily, can you see?
Yes, but I think they're questions.
They're ones from before.
Answered. Yeah,
that's no problem.
Just stretching.
The next one, I know Emily's put up the link, but the next one we will look at more the actual applications and the projects and looking at the different themes and how we can put that together. We also have speakers from the department themselves who can ask if you are willing to take some questions. Maria, is there anything else we need to add in here? Put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, to be fair, I think we've covered everything. I think this next session will focus more on the projects, as you said. So looking forward to seeing everyone.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sorry. The one thing I will say is if there's any follow-up questions that the wheel can answer, or myself, I was involved in the leader program. I've included my email there in the chat box, so feel free to contact me.
Nora, you?
Sorry, when is the next session?
8th of June.
The 8th of
June.
We get an email anyway, I presume.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll include the links to the 2 follow-up sessions in the follow-up email. So there's one on the 8th of June and one on the 22nd of June.
Incentivization of the sectors. Well, we'll try. We'll look at that and just see how we can get different sectors to get involved and get involved with the partners. So we'll definitely look at that for the development of the projects for the next time round. Thank you so very much from lovely Armagh. It's been great to see so many people here today and so involved. It's always a pleasure to deliver a webinar when people actually get engaged with you rather than just looking. So it's been really, really good. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. From the wheel as well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Perfect. So Trish and Maria, I might just end the meeting.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay. Talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.